Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello. Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics. And thank you for joining me. Today, well, first, this is where I like to take a look at some older comics. Talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and then examine the stories and the art. What I want to look at today is this little book right here from 1983, DC Comics Blackhawk 263. And this is what, volume 4, I think? Yeah. Volume 32. Oh, Blackhawk has been around for a long time. And the story on this one is Only One Survives, written by Mark Evenier and drawn by Dan Spiegel. Let's see what I got here in the big book of knowledge. Blackhawk, number 263, 1983, by Mark Evenier and Dan Spiegel. And Blackhawk first appeared in Military Comics number 1 from Quality Comics in 1941. And then 1955, 56, somewhere in there, DC acquired a lot of, if not all of the characters from Quality Comics, including Blackhawk. And since then, Blackhawk has been a DC character. He was created by Chuck Quidero with Will Eisner and Bob Powell. And Blackhawk is the leader of the Blackhawk Squadron, a team of World War II era pilots from several countries, kind of like the French Foreign Legion. And the Blackhawks operate from a hidden island base known as Blackhawk Island. And they fly the really cool looking Grumman XF-5F Skyrocket fighter plane. It was a real plane, but it never went into production. And I think it was chosen just because it looked cool, and at the time that the Blackhawk was created, it was something that was brand new. They probably knew about it, it's just being tested and stuff, but never went into production. I don't know why. I guess it was for the Navy. They fight against the Axis powers in cooperation with, but outside the regular command structure of the Allied forces. I don't know where they get their funding, but I know that later Blackhawk was sometimes getting his orders directly from President Roosevelt. And Blackhawk himself, I don't think they ever actually gave his actual name. They probably did sometime in there, but I'm not aware of it, and I didn't. And my research didn't list it. Okay, Blackhawk himself was a pilot fighting against the German invasion of Poland in 1939, in which his brother and his family were killed. After that, he sought out allies, mostly people like himself who had lost friends or family members from the blitzkriegs across Europe. He sought out, and they formed the Blackhawks to fight the Axis and achieve vengeance for those who were victimized. Oh. And then I've talked about Dan Spiegel before. I'll get a little bit more with him, but I'll tell you now just a little bit about the writer Mark Evenier. And he was born in 1952, so he's 70 years old this year. He's probably best known for having worked on Garfield and Friends TV show, as well as on the comic book Gru the Wanderer with Sergio Aragonis. He is a comic blogger and a comics historian and biographer, and he's author of the biography Kirby, King of Comics. Great big book with all these Kirby illustrations. I've got a copy, and we'll talk about that sometime. He started working professionally in comics in 1969 for Marvel as a production assistant for Jack Kirby, and shortly afterward, he started writing Disney comics and others for Gold Key Comics. In a Warner Brothers story, he actually revealed that the E in Wile E. Coyote stands for Ethelbert. And he has written comics for the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate. In the mid-1970s, he wrote for primetime TV sitcoms such as Welcome Back, Kotter, and Parker Stevenson. No, not Parker Stevenson. Other shows like that. And he got in, I'm suddenly drawing a blank on some of the titles that I saw. And eventually, he got on with Hanna-Barbera Animation, and he wrote for a whole host of animated shows. And he's done a whole host of comic books, too, besides those mentioned. And he did another project for, I think it was Eclipse. I think it was Eclipse Comics with Dan Spiegel called, and I plan on doing it here in the near future, and I can't think of the title right now. Senior moments, they come more frequently. It makes it harder to remember stuff. Okay. It just does not want to stay lit. So, let's go take a look. Go back to World War II and fight the Nazis with Blackhawk. Okay, here we go. You can see the whole cover image of this issue of Blackhawk with this very dynamic and tantalizing image drawn by Gil Kane. And we'll talk more about him another time. Gil Kane. And then just for some comparison here, I have this other issue of Blackhawk, just a few issues before, with a cover drawn by Howie Chaykin. And just a few years later, Howie Chaykin did a remarkable miniseries, Blackhawk miniseries. He both wrote and drew it, and is in his own stylized fashion. And that style, his style, you can just get a hint here. This style is quite a bit different from his style that we saw when I did War of the Worlds. It had really matured. And this is, of course, it's kind of difficult to place it. It is a war comic because, like, especially this time, the stories are all take place in World War II, fighting the Axis, primarily the Germans. But the Blackhawks were not restricted just to World War II. After the war ended, they didn't break up. They continued, and have later generations of people have served in the Blackhawks, and they have engaged in, had storylines in contemporary times. Some with the same characters, and some with some newer characters, I guess, and they combated various other menaces, often alongside the Justice League and other superheroes. Okay, and then I want you to see this. And this is from 1982. This is just a year before this comic. This is a novel, William Rotsler of Blackhawk. I've had this for years. I've started it a couple times and still have never gotten finished it, because the way I read books sometimes, well, I won't go into that. But I do eventually want to get it read. And from what I understand, from thumbing through it and reading it, at least the first part is just a retelling of his origin, which makes sense, as described in here. DC's Secret Origin of Blackhawk. And this, here's Splashway, and this is from the very first reprinting, the very first appearance of Blackhawk in comics. And there you see, and now notice the Blackhawk uniforms are cool, and in fact, they look a lot like the Nazi uniforms. But the bad guys always had the coolest uniforms, so why not let the good guys adopt them once in a while? And here, just briefly, this was the story was written by Will Eisner, and the art is by Chuck Quidera. They co-created the character. I imagine Joe Quidera came up with the character, and then Will Eisner wrote it and come up with the basic backstory. Here we're just seeing the Blitzkrieg, and this is when his brother and family were killed. Then later, we see that character up against Blackhawk when he's got his squadron, just a few months later. And here you can see his uniform is a little different than what we see over here. He just has wings on his uniform instead of the Black Hawk symbol. Okay, and I wanted to show, because I don't think the one we're going to review shows too much of it, but I wanted to give you. Oh, come on! I know I just went through here. Yeah, you get a lot of shots of that really cool aircraft that the Blackhawks fly. And I've talked about Dan Spiegel, the artist, before. Here we go. Splash panel, splash page. Just giving you a hint what's inside without getting into the story just yet. And this is Blackhawk against Domino, who is a Nazi assassin, and also a love interest. And they've been up against each other before. Only one survives. Now, this has got to be now, I've talked about Dan Spiegel before. He is an excellent draftsman. I talked about him in that Gold Key Lost in Space. But here he is with seemed a lot more dense blacks than what we used to see. Great great draftsmanship, very slick, very professional appearing. And of course, a lot of the dense blacks could have to do with the darker nature, as well as all the dark uniforms that all these Blackhawks have. And here this lady Domino, she's really cool looking and just incredibly sexy. Of course, her sexuality is one of her weapons, but surprisingly sexy for a mainstream comic. Almost latex fetish. Here we go. Double page spread right off the bat, to the beginning of the story, and right in the middle. See, of course, it was a war comic, but Blackhawk often had more of a sci-fi fantasy elements to them. And here we can see the Blackhawks are in this. I guess this is a town in Sweden. Blackhawk is off on a mission, which we'll get into, and the rest of the squadron is here trying to defend this town. It has a British consulate, embassy in it, and this giant crushing wheel. It just appears, goes to town, just tearing everything to havoc, and then disappears again. So, but see the detail in the background here. It's very, very nice. And one thing I do like is that the inking in the background in these buildings and stuff is very loose and kind of rough, which really accentuates the rustic nature of these old buildings, even though they're just being destroyed. So their weapons seem to be useless against these this big wheel, and they're trying to save the people. And Stanislav here, he's the second in command, so he's in command of while Blackhawk himself is away, and they're trying to do something. Well, Blackhawk accidentally leads his people right into, Stanislav accidentally leads his people right into a bog filled with quicksand, and the old guy, I've forgotten his name. He is a sharpshooter, and he shoots off the antenna, which is part of the controls for the giant gizmo. They get the people out, and then when they're done, the thing's completely gone. There we get a good image of that aircraft. Really cool looking plane, which is probably why it was selected. So Stanislavs is having self-doubts on his ability to lead, because his buddy here is really blaming him for the thing getting away. Meanwhile, here in Marrakesh is Blackhawk on a mission to find and kill Domino. And then on this page here we get a flashback to the origin and previous encounters with Domino. And there she looks way cool and menacing. And of course, why would she wear such high spiked heels? And as you can see, it has kind of a latex fetish look to it. There she is. This it's kind of like well, a bar, like Rick's bar. I'm drawing a blank on the classic movie. Oh, anyway, she's dressed up. He's dressed up, and checking this place out, trying to get some information. Yada yada yada. He spots her. She spots him, and they go to town, fighting in the middle of this fancy bar. And then they're both taken captive by another fiendish group. You can see some really nice artwork, and they are each given their own uniforms back, because these people went to their hotel rooms. Anyway, here we go, back with Stanislav, and here we see how this big wheel is getting transported without anyone seeing it. But Stanislav has an idea, and he says, released something that his buddy has really said, that's stupid that you did this stuff. There's another good shot of their planes. And we see amongst artificial clouds these dirigibles carrying this huge wheel. And that's how, and then they're attacking. They figured that out, and now they're attacking. Yeah. It's a great aerial combat scene. And they're attacking the dirigibles so that they have to drop the wheel. But the wheel is very substantial, crashes to the ground. Going to the same town, going to go to the embassy because he taunted them with the fact that they didn't get the British embassy which had been their target. So they make it so they had to come back. Well, Stanislaus, he's leading the thing away right into the lake, and it gets mired down in the quicksand. And then they capture the German soldiers who are occupying it. Now they find out that Blackhawk has been captured. And here we are back to the captured Blackhawk and Domino. And this group here, they're going to sell, they're going to sell Blackhawk to the Nazis. They're going to sell Domino to the Allies. And she's just horrified when she finds out that, well, Hitler's not going to pay a 1 red cent to get her back, but he'll pay a fortune for Blackhawk. But they have had a plan for escape. They have to call a truce to work together. And some really nice action. It's pretty dynamic. They overpower these guards and these guys, and they get out. And now their truce is over, and she's got her weapon, and looks like she's going to fulfill her contract and shoot him. Here's another great shot of her, and great face. All the detail, everything is just wonderfully drawn, wonderfully told. It is a really nice story. I really like it. I really like this. She's going to shoot, but it's click, click, click. Worst sound in the world when you need to shoot something and you hear click. The Blackhawks got there just in time. She's about to shoot Blackhawk, and they get the old guy, the sharpshooter, and he takes out Domino, and Blackhawk is horrified because they had no way of knowing that her gun was empty. Seemed to be, and they rush down. He's fine, and it's good. Then he tells them that her gun was empty. Oh, well, it's a good thing. Then she picks up the big guy, picks up the gun, and pow! It wasn't empty. She was faking it. So she basically sacrificed herself, and Blackhawk is then he's saddened because he had hoped he could turn her. He could save her from being because she had potential to be a good person. She had an origin not unlike his own. Her husband had been killed, and she wanted revenge against the Allies. But because she had a basic good heart, coming out in spite of all of her training, and he mourns her in his own way, leaving some rose petals in the water where she died. And that is the end of that story. Like I said, I really like that story. Mark Evenier did a great job of telling it, and Dan Spiegel was marvelous in his art showing the story. Some wonderful draftsmanship. Some nice ink work, great panel-to-panel continuity and storytelling. It is just a nice, all over a real nice piece. So that's all I've got to show you now for Blackhawk. I hope you enjoyed this. You might want to seek out some Blackhawks. I don't have a whole lot of Blackhawk, but I really enjoyed this story here. Thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe. Share it with your other war interested buddies or just general comic fans, leave a comment, and we'll see you another time. And remember, comics are art.